Hello everybody, Dan TCB, TheCriminalViolin here, aka Power Supply Fan, back with a brand new video. The best part is that I'm not actually currently live recording this video. This is a narration over it because of the fact that apparently I pull it into my editing software here and all I find is that the stupid recording software I had, Loyalo, that I was using was working for a handful of time, and then it decided it wasn't going to record audio on the video that was most crucial to record the audio on. So basically I'm going to be here to narrate over the top of it because it's very crucial that I do this. Now, this is like the last revisited I did, and this was intended as that, but of course I didn't record the audio, so rip. But that's why I'm here to narrate over it. Anyway, so if you watch the last Revisited, which was the first and only Revisited until now, that I did on Creativerse, I did it this last November, and to be honest, I felt like I was way overly critical about it. I was just like, I was actually a hugely negative Nancy about it, and I shouldn't have been. And I don't know what the heck got into me that day, but apparently something... I know it was partially related to the game and the changes they did, but there obviously must have been something else, I swear, that was really effing with my day that day, because I was way overly critical, and I was really unfair to the game and the devs and stuff. But as I went through this, as I was recording, I found that each of my constructive criticisms I had, that of course each of them were really overly critical and severe, but I found that they were still perfectly on point, and they still stood today, and they were all incredibly correct. Like, for example, one of the main points I kept harping on was the fact that they gave up on a perfect, unbeatable direction on the game that they were set in stone on going. And something broke along the line, like the switch was just flipped, and suddenly they just seemed uncertain for a large period of time, and then suddenly after that, this new path arrived. And personally, I hate it. I hate it so much, because it's pulling well away from the sandboxy kind of, casual, leisurely, fun kind of survival game. They're going forward now to much more of a truly challenging survival, grindy kind of survival game. And I personally, that is not at all my style of game, and I do not like it when games go that direction, especially when they were initially trying and set on going into a sandboxy way. I love sandbox games. I love the creative abilities they give you, and the choices they give you, and all that. And they swapped right away from that at some point. Like I said, the switch was flipped, and they were uncertain for a period of time, and then suddenly now they're set in stone and going on this road. And I think it's a huge bummer. So that's one of the things that I, of course, kept pointing out here too, is that I kept pointing out in that video. In other words, I'm still pointing out in this video that I do not like the direction myself. Also, I don't know if you saw, or if it's coming later, I think it's also coming later a little bit too, a little bit better of an example, if it was there in the first part, but I can't necessarily remember. I'm not really watching the preview here. But yeah, they added a in-game purchasing system. So instead of an in-app purchasing system like on a mobile game, they added it into a PC-only game. And I thought that was really bizarre, but at the same time, I dislike it. And I went on how, of course, I will never not hate DLCs, I'll never not hate in-app purchases or anything like that. And I always get highly annoyed by the people that say, well, the devs gotta make money somehow. It's like, no, especially if they're a big one, like, for example, Bethesda, which I went through and I whined my head off about them charging. Like, you had to have every single DLC they ever released for the original Skyrim and the original Skyrim in order to then get the other game for free. If you didn't have every single DLC, then basically stick the middle finger up your ass. And I got really agitated by that, because the company that owns Bethesda, is a much bigger corporation, and actually then I'm sure they also have another bigger corporation than them that are owning them. It's just a typical predatory capitalism umbrella corporation system of the U.S., but yeah, and I don't care what anyone says. I'm damn right. It's a money grab. That's all it is. And the entire DLC idea is a money grab. It's not helping anybody, and it's only a disgrace to everything. Because, and I just want to touch up on this right now, even though it's not necessarily associated with the game, other than the in-app purchases, but otherwise it's indirect. So enough of that. But anyway, so that's that point laid out, because the Creativerse says the in-app purchases they decided to add to the game, which I hate. Let me add a little more to that though. Is that the team behind Creativerse is an indie company, and they are fairly small. I think this is the first and only game they've ever been working on. So, with this change in direction, they actually lost a huge amount of support and a huge amount of their audience base, and they're still so stubborn to stick to this route. So I can imagine that too also means that obviously the revenue has dropped quite a lot, and their reputation, their advertising abilities, and their reach has dropped a hell of a lot. I know there's a lot of bigger YouTubers, I'm not going to name them, but there's a lot of bigger YouTubers that have done quite literally about exactly as many videos about the exact same time I started, and they ended about the exact same time that I ended on the Creativerse thing. And you could just tell that they just slowly, like probably subconsciously, even myself, you didn't really realize it consciously, but subconsciously you'd find it's like, oh well, crap, you know, it's I can see they're shifting in direction, they're losing their focuses, and then lo and behold, you go back and you look and you discover, yeah, they lost their focus, they gave it up, and they're going on switching to something else. Lo and behold, they did indeed do that, and it's really, really sad, because they had a perfect direction and they gave it all up just for this new direction that they actually lost. I was surprised that they find that they lost so many people to it, and these YouTubers have not touched it since, which is really, I think, kind of convenient. And I know these YouTubers and their content and what they like and their style of game well enough that I know that they probably wouldn't criticize as much as I am, but they probably would point out that they liked the direction, it was better, and they can see the clear change in path and direction and game mechanics and everything else, and that they might try it again sometime, but likelihood is they probably wouldn't, because that's not the style of game and play they really like. Like I'm kind of pointing out, I already know that that's kind of how they work. They're kind of similar to me in that. So I can imagine that if they touch back on that they probably wouldn't necessarily like the direction too much. But getting back into the other points I wanted to make is that, and this is especially, I feel like, important for the devs to note what I'm pointing out to them, that they would be incredibly intelligent and smart, and it would help them budget in every other way a lot, exposure, if they bound, and I've said this before in the first revisit video, but I'll say it again, if they bound together this path with the initial path, and then added little extra nuances, like I can never not keep preaching on and harping on, like I did in the first one, and I did from the very first day in the series on, add a creative mode, a true wholehearted free creative mode, sandbox, 100%. You get 100% freedom to create whatever you want and have as many of the blocks as you want to fly and everything else, not with the glider and limits on that, but unlimited flying, just flying around. Basically a god mode, or a creative mode, whatever you want to call it. So basically like Minecraft creative mode, that's what I'm talking about. And they desperately need to add that. And I'll tell you why, this is really crucial for them to know, and for them to note, and to hopefully at least consider, if not actually take it on, is the fact that, and why it's incredibly intelligent for them, is the fact that it would add back not only the audience they lost, but it would add back a bunch more people, and it would give them a lot more exposure, and it would expand, it would help have their game expand beyond what they have now, which feels pretty constricted, so much more. It gives it so much more variety, and it gives different styles of gaming and stuff, especially in these kind of survival games. It would give different style gamers much more to play around with and enjoy and showcase, and that's always a good thing. It gives it a lot more gameplay. It gives it a lot more game time to play and variety. It just gives so much more to a game if you do that, and instead of being stubborn like this and just sticking to your one direction and refusing to touch the other ones or get it back and start taking steps in that direction, which they seem pretty damn stubborn and refusing of it. Which is really sad. So it's kind of, I feel this really would be important for these devs and anyone that hopes to make a game to note these things, that it's not just me being like, I really want this, but it's the fact that I know that there's a lot of people that would want that, and it does help your exposure for your game and your company, and it does help expand your fan base and your player base. It really does. So it's really important to note that. And yeah. So next on the list, though, I found they did add something that from day one in Creativerse, the very first day I ever touched it, which was the very first video I ever created on it. I think like June last year or something, maybe May something. Can't remember. Anyway, as soon as I saw Pigsy, I was in love, and I said, they have to implement, if the devs see it, they have to implement a taming ability for it, because I have to have one of these as a pet. They're so freaking cute, and they are still the cutest things ever. And lo and behold, they did end up adding some point between November and now, they added a taming system. However, I don't like the taming system because not the gaming style I like. In other words, yes, the taming system is heavily based on the direction that they're going now that I don't exactly appreciate. Pixie! As you can see. Anyway, actually, I don't know if you can see it now because I'm probably going to cut out a bunch of this and speed up some of it and all that. But anyway, you'll actually see a little bit later that I will end up finding out that I can tame these guys, and then I tame 2 of them, and I almost die when I tame the second one because I'm an idiot, and I didn't think, for some reason I went back to the default, like, oh, this is the initial days, and yeah, that was bad. And of course I didn't have any armor on, which is, I guess, okay, but you really have to grind for armor too, apparently. I do not like the grind in it. Most, especially if you're going to YouTube on it, most people, especially bigger YouTubers, or ones that just don't want to be grinding the entire time and wasting their time recording nothing but Creativerse, I'm going to tell you, be honest, they're not going to want to play a game like this because they're not going to want to grind never-endingly, incessantly, non-stop. I mean, this is, what I'm playing on here for the first time, in fact, is the easy mode, and yeah, all that other stuff. It was still so grindy, and I was worried that if you went any less easy than that, and leisurely that, it would get more grindier. I don't know if that's the case, so take it with a grain of salt if you don't know yourself, but I would assume. Oh yeah, and see, you notice the coins up there? Yeah, that's part of the in-game purchasing system. So if you run out of coins, guess what? You have to buy more coins like you do in, say, Clash of Clans or League of Legends or any of those things. They're on mobile. League of Legends is a browser, I think, game. But anyway, yeah. Whatever the other one is, like Clash of Clans on there. Anyway, yeah. So, that was a cool feature, and I did appreciate that a lot. I got tame Pigsies, and so I did. I got Pigsy Doodle, and then I got Eon Fleming. So, don't ask about Eon Fleming. I even said that in the video, don't ask. But actually, well, I guess I will touch on that. Eon Fleming, if anyone wants to know, is just something so freaking random. I just randomly put swapped a first and last name together, and 2K11, which I have for Wii. Wii! And, that is before my Wii died, of course. Or the I should say, burned out. Yeah, anyway. It was a 6'3 power forward, or not power forward, a 6'3, small forward I created. Small forward, power forward. And I, for some reason, decided to name him Ian Fleming at random. And ever since then, that name, for some bizarre reason, has always stuck to my head. Even more than the name Pondakis 1Cs, which is another 2K11 player I always created, and I always create when I can play it. It's, he's supposed to be from the Czech Republic, or from Cyprus, and he's supposed to be a 7'6 power forward. That has unlimited ability. Anyway, different story. Completely different game. Anyway, so that's touching on Ian Fleming, but I don't know, it just randomly popped into my head, and it's, my mind randomly pops into names, and for some reason it always ends up eventually touching on Ian Fleming, and I don't know why. And lately, the last like month, it's been constantly bringing that name up, so I figured I'd give it a handicap, and I'd throw it a bone, humor it, and do that. Anyway, that's that. So, yeah, I named another one Ian Fleming. Another thing they added was gliding, in case you didn't see that when I was on my player there. Yeah. They added a gliding system to it, and I do like it, but the boost runs out so quick, and the only way you can recharge your boost is if you land. And you do eventually end up going really slow sometimes. It seems like they may have implemented maybe kind of a turbulence sort of air current system, so if you hit a certain set of turbulence from winds and stuff, you get slowed down a lot? I don't know. And of course, it's like any other real-world flying thing. If you go up too far, too long, it stalls, and then you plummet for a while. Especially if you boost up. So you actually lose progress rather than make progress upward. Just go at the slightest upslant to ascend. And yeah, I don't know if that was always there, but they added a flashlight, which was pretty cool, so you don't have to have a scorch. That's good. Anyway, I just feel little random things here and there, little nuances that they added to the game that I do appreciate. I can't really lie about that, but yeah. It's just, all the same points that I made in the first one still stand. It's just, I want to clarify the fact that I was way overly critical in that first one on November that I did, that first revisited. I was so, I don't know why I was such a negative Nancy that day. Weird, I don't even remember feeling that negative that day. I must have been like in a super analytical mood kind of day. And that's never... It's never necessarily a good day, especially when you go for a revisited kind of thing, I guess, in a game like this, and you didn't know that they changed the direction to as completely different thing than it was before, and that you'd end up hating it because it's not at all your style, and you hate this kind of a grindy thing and challenge system because you like leisurely, sandboxy, easy kind of stuff just for leisure and fun and derping. But this doesn't really allow that. You kind of have to be serious about it and grind, which is kind of a pain in the ass. And I imagine because of my opinionated analytical nature and things like that, with all that, it probably played a big part in it. I probably had a really analytical day that day, kind of mindset that just came on by default. I occasionally have days like that, whether I like it or not. But usually I don't like being analytical because I get really opinionated and I get really furious pretty easily sometimes, and I don't like that feeling. But yeah. It happens, and it's hard to snap out of it once you're in it. But anyway. So that's my assumption on what the heck happened that day. I'm not entirely sure if that was, but I'm pretty sure it was that. It just makes sense to me. Anyway. But again, I don't know for a fact, so again, take that with a grain of salt. Anyway. Yeah. So... I know that I explored for about 45 to 50 minutes straight after I did this kind of grindy thing and tested all these things out, tried to find new blueprints. This is still going to go on for a while. If I did not cut out and speed anything, I'm sure I did. Anyway, and I just didn't find really anything new. I knew that, now that I think about it, I don't know if I did in the video initially, but I know that canyons were always there. Canyonlands. Not always there, that was either the swap direction. Same with the tundra thing and the icy places and all that. But snowy canyons, I do not think I knew were there. I don't know. They still list as just canyons, so I don't know if I knew about that priorly, or if that's really considered different or not. I know that they have a high desert, and it's funny because I observed and I said, this looks like it's probably more of a high desert in the winter. And lo and behold, that's exactly what it was, and is. It's a high desert. They don't call it a high desert. They call it like a frozen desert. I can't remember exactly what they called it. It was kind of generic and acme and tacky, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool. So basically, I know that being analytical in nature, and then being the fact that I hate the kind of direction they're going, which is a grindy, really kind of serious sort of challenge kind of a thing. That could be that always would probably play a role of me disliking a game really heavily and being a little overcritical. Yeah. But I have to acknowledge that I know that there's a lot of people, a hell of a lot of people, that would really, truly enjoy, these kind of games. And it seems like sandboxes did take over probably about 2009-10, as well as the challenging kind of games. Except because of Minecraft, it seemed like everything that was this style kind of went down that sandbox route. And I guess this dev team thought, do we really want to be a part of the stereotypical roles? And they decided, I guess they didn't. That would, again, take it with the assault, because that would be my assumption with them, is that they decided they didn't want to go down the stereotypical route with this kind of type of game, and so they figured, you know what, why not? Anyway, let's change direction. Let's go towards a more serious route and see if people are ready for that. Obviously, a lot of people are. A lot of people still like this kind of grindy thing and all that. And challenge. I've never been one for a challenge. I like leisure, especially when playing games. I feel like my opinion on that is, like, if you're not having fun and it's instead for a challenge and competition, you're doing it wrong. It makes me remind me of that, I think his name is like Matt Reinman or something, that does the surfing. He says the same thing about surfing. He's like, if you're doing it for, say, quantity over quality, and you're doing it for, say, competition and all that, then, and not for fun, then you're doing it wrong. You got to be doing it for quality over quantity, and you got to be doing it for fun. That's the number one thing. You got to be doing it for fun. You can't be doing it for competition necessarily. If it's a fun competition, not like a competition, like a super competitive one where you're trying to get a medal or something, then it makes sense. If it's just like a fun one, like bragging rights, then I think he probably feels the same way. And it's like, yeah, that's that. Obviously, if you're still having fun with that, and it's just you amongst friends and stuff like that, and you're just basically still being dorks having fun, then yeah, go for it. That's obviously still having fun. That still applies. But if it's like a literal competition where you're not going to be too contented with yourself if you don't win top 3 or win gold or something, then you're doing it wrong. I feel like kind of the same way about the gaming. I don't see the point in it, Yeah. Anyway, with this, I know there's probably some other things I really need to touch on. I can't necessarily remember everything. There was a lot of things I touched on in this that I noticed I didn't necessarily like. Here's where I discovered the theming color. I don't know if that's actually, if I'm just gonna dub this over or whatever, and then just like have music for the rest of it. Probably not, but I don't know. But yeah. So I end up getting what I need to make a taming color, and then I end up getting Pixie Doodle and Fleming. And these guys was a newbie I discovered. I don't think I discovered it in November. I may have. I don't know. Face is familiar, but otherwise. And they just seem always super timid and scared. And that's why I was chasing him. I was like, why is he always so timid and scared? And then I found out what he was named, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's why. Maybe he's like a keeper of gold. Maybe he doesn't want me to kill him for gold. I don't know. Anyway, that was kind of an interesting critter. Can't remember. I think maybe I found a new creature somewhere. That may have been it. I don't know, but at least new to me. But yeah. So basically, my main criticism for the game is, again, I highly dislike the style of game they're now going for. I highly dislike the grindy seriousness of it. I don't like it's not sandbox here. It at least doesn't have a sandbox style of mode you can select. If not literally sandbox mode you can select. That always is gonna make me grumble, gripe, and be very incontented. Yeah. That's my biggest gripe, and it always has been, is I do not like the direction they've gone. I know, like I said, I know there's a lot of people that have, and they love playing it now because it's changed that direction. They actually like it more than it was before. But of that group, it's incredibly small majority of the players initially that are still here. There's some of them that rarely touch it. There's some of them that don't touch it at all. And there's some of them that either got bored of it. I highly recommend that the devs take on the idea of re-implementing what their initial direction was with this current direction, and then adding a creative mode, at least for a starting step or two, and then continue from there, because I feel like it's crucially important for them to be smart enough to where they give it a chance. Cutting that out into its own video, just to touch up on that, and just simply tell you guys what my opinion is on all that and why I have it. But anyway, but I feel like that was a really important and crucial to get out there too. Not so much to explain myself, but just to point out the illogicalness of people's support for it, because I feel like you're only illogical and stupid if you actually are willingly going to support things like that. So anyway, yeah, otherwise that's about it. So I have been Danny TCB, TheCriminalViolin, and I hope you have enjoyed. If you didn't got the gist of it, if you did, I guess please leave a like. And yeah, if you didn't enjoy it, please leave your honest input. You know, if you actually did not like it, then definitely be sure to leave that dislike. That's why that button's there. And I do encourage it because I want honest feedback. And also, I want to know what you guys think about what I've mentioned here, and I would definitely want to know what you guys think about ideas for the dev team, and if you like the ideas and suggestions I gave. And I want to be able to know some of your guys' ideas too. You know, you guys can discuss amongst yourselves, and I'll every so often probably check in with it and all that. If not pretty consistently, probably really consistently. And yeah, I feel like that's a pretty fun and important thing to do. So yeah. And otherwise, yeah, pretty much. You guys feel free to share it with your dog, your cat, your ice cream cone, your rotting milk, your grandpa's remains, and your French duck. Yeah. Words. Anyway, with the dev team or the forums, I don't care, because I don't know. I feel like I would like some constructive criticism from the literal community here on the Creativerse side of things. So yeah. But yeah, that's it. So I've been Dan TCB, TheCriminalViolin, and yeah, stay safe, stay fluffy, have a great day or night wherever you are. You can speak English, and goodbye, everybody.